At 8:45 a.m. on a quiet October morning in 1962, an American U-2 spy plane drifted high above Cuba, its pilot unaware that the photographs being taken would push the world closer to nuclear annihilation than it had ever been before, or would ever come again. The story of the Cuban Missile Crisis is often told as a cold chess match between superpowers, but the reality was far more fragile, human, and astonishing. It was a moment when history hinged not on speeches or armies, but on misunderstood signals, personal restraint, and a few men making decisions under unbearable pressure. In the early 1960s, the Cold War was at its most dangerous stage. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in an ideological struggle that spanned continents. Nuclear weapons had become the ultimate symbol of power, and both sides believed that showing weakness could invite destruction. When Fidel Castro took power in Cuba in 1959, just 90 miles from Florida, the United States viewed the island as a potential Soviet outpost in its own backyard. What most Americans didn't know in October 1962 was that the Soviet Union had secretly begun installing nuclear missiles in Cuba, missiles capable of reaching Washington, D.C., New York, and much of the continental United States in minutes. The photographs taken by that U-2 plane revealed missile launch sites under construction. When President John F. Kennedy was shown the images, he reportedly sat in silence, fully grasping the gravity of what he was seeing. Kennedy immediately formed a secret group of advisors known as the Executive Committee of the National Security Council, or EXCOM. For nearly 2 weeks, they debated the unthinkable. Some urged immediate airstrikes and a full invasion of Cuba. Military leaders warned that failure to act decisively would make America appear weak. Others feared that any attack would provoke a Soviet response in Europe, especially in Berlin, or even trigger a full nuclear exchange. Behind the scenes, the pressure was crushing. Kennedy knew that one wrong move could kill millions. At the same time, he could not publicly reveal the missiles without explaining how the United States had discovered them. The world, meanwhile, went about its daily business, unaware that the clock was ticking. On October 22, 1962, Kennedy addressed the nation on television. His calm but firm voice announced that Soviet missiles had been found in Cuba and that the United States would impose a naval quarantine, carefully avoiding the word blockade, which would legally imply an act of war. American warships moved into position, and Soviet vessels carrying additional missile components steamed toward the line. For several days, the world held its breath. American families watched the news in silence. Children practiced duck-and-cover drills in schools. Churches filled with people praying. At any moment, a single gunshot, a misread radar signal, or an impulsive order could ignite a nuclear war. One of the most astonishing moments of the crisis occurred far from Washington, deep beneath the ocean. On October 27th, a U.S. Navy task force dropped practice depth charges near a Soviet submarine, unaware that the submarine carried a nuclear torpedo. Inside, the crew, cut off from communication and suffering from extreme heat, believed war might have already started. The captain wanted to launch the nuclear weapon. Soviet protocol required agreement from 3 officers. 2 approved. The third, Vasily Arkhipov, refused. His decision likely saved the world. That same day, an American U-2 plane was shot down over Cuba, killing the pilot, Major Rudolph Anderson, Jr. Many in the U.S. military demanded immediate retaliation. Kennedy resisted. Instead, he chose a quieter, more dangerous path: secret diplomacy. Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev sent conflicting messages, one emotional and conciliatory, the next harsher and demanding. Kennedy responded to the softer letter, publicly agreeing not to invade Cuba if the missiles were removed. Privately, through back-channel negotiations, the United States also agreed to remove its own nuclear missiles from Turkey, a concession kept secret for years. On October 28th, Khrushchev announced that the Soviet Union would dismantle the missiles in Cuba. The crisis was over. The world stepped back from the edge. What makes the Cuban Missile Crisis so astonishing is not just how close humanity came to destruction, but how narrowly it avoided it. There was no master plan that guaranteed safety. Survival depended on restraint, empathy, and individuals choosing caution over pride. Kennedy ignored military pressure. Khrushchev chose compromise over confrontation. Arkhipov said no when it mattered most. For Americans, the crisis reshaped how leaders thought about power and responsibility.
It led to the creation of the Washington-Moscow hotline and eventually to nuclear arms control agreements. But more importantly, it left behind a sobering truth. History is not only shaped by grand strategies, but by human judgment in moments of fear. In October 1962, the world learned that the greatest battles are sometimes fought in silence, and that the future of millions can rest on a single decision made under unbearable darkness.